I've been a BloodRayne fan ever since my friends and I huddled around a PC in the early 2000s when we were supposed to be studying for our finals. So yeah, I'm not going to lie, there were two massive reasons I was interested in the first game, but the series as a whole was always something that had glimmers of greatness that it just couldn't quite sink its two fangs into. All that is irrelevant though, because Twilight happened and the ripple effect threw the whole vampire aesthetic into the teen romance section of your local $2 bookstore. And look, if sunlight, glitter, and moody stares shared across abusive love triangles is your thing, then I say you're probably living your best life right now, and all the best to you. Now, if you thought that Robert Pattinson's career and BloodRayne were sympathetic victims buried under the legacy of Twilight, then I have some bad news because it gets worse for BloodRayne. Remember that we live in 2023 and femme fatale is illegal in Western game development. So yeah, I don't think we're going to be seeing any kind of sustenance in BloodRayne's neck of the woods. All this to say that BloodRayne Betrayal Freshbites is the freshest thing that we have in the series in the form of a remaster from 2021. Now, don't get too excited because even though this thing was remastered, it's basically a 2011 game from the wild world of Xbox Live Arcade, and believe me, we're going to be talking about that. So what is BloodRayne Betrayal Freshbites? Well, you are Rayne, a Dampier. What's a Dampier? A Daywalker, a half-breed, a vampire that can walk around in the sunlight. But live! Don't vampires sparkle? Shut the f*** up! So anyways, Rayne works for the Brimstone Society, whose job is to hunt down supernatural threats to the human race. You can thank me later because you're not going to glean any of this from Betrayal, because the game starts off at the closing chapters. Rayne's father, Kagan, is a very powerful vampire that wants to end mankind's dominance, and the Brimstone Society have found his castle and send Rayne along with armed forces to take him out. Now, as you can see, Rayne and Kagan are very much at odds here, so this is panning out to be more than the awkward conversation at Christmas dinner, and it's looking like they may use more pointed means of discussion in their differences. Betrayal plays as a 2D side-scrolling action platformer where we run the course of the level, usually left to right, while killing everything that stands in our way. There's an upside and downside to this. First and foremost, I think the 2D graphics age quite gracefully, and as I scroll through my collection of side-scrollers on Steam, I can't say that Betrayal looks dated in comparison to other offerings. If anything, I would say that the comic book aesthetic of characters and enemies in Betrayal look clean and fluid next to the newer games that tend toward pixel art styles that purposely try to look old. The bright colors of Rayne and the foreground characters really punch out against the more restrained backdrops. I'm a sucker for this look. I've collected comic books for as long as I can remember, so to be able to play a comic book that is so well animated, I mean, oh my god. That move Rayne does where she goes into a power stance and raises her blades either side and then drops them into an X like she's doing her best Wolverine impression is so badass. You're just never going to hear a bad word out of my mouth about how this game looks. It's not just Rayne either, even the basic enemies are detailed and cared for enough that they could easily be the main character in another game. The downside to taking the side-scroller route is that by the very nature of being a 2D game, it won't be to everyone's tastes, as the majority of gamers are allergic to not having control of the camera perspective. Even fans of the BloodRayne series might feel estranged, since the previous games, while different to each other, were always third-person action affairs. Controlling Rayne, you have an attack button that alters your combos with directional inputs. You have limited shots with your pistol, and you can recover ammo from down enemies. Later you get the Sun Gun, which has infinite ammo, not quite as powerful, but has more application for traversal. You have a grab that will allow you to bite flinched enemies and suck their blood, or alternatively, you can cut feeding short and infect them, which turns them into an explosive that you can detonate at will. This offers a delicious conundrum: do I heal or do I turn this scrub into a bomb? Of course, you have the usual mobility options here, a jump and a dash with invincibility frames. You can also do a backflip high jump from a dash. So now you know what you're looking at. Is BloodRayne Betrayal Freshbites a good game? Well, sort of. Let's start with what it does well. We covered the presentation already, but I don't think that the power fantasy of playing as a dual-bladed vampire femme fatale has ever been better represented. And I think that owes a lot to how good the animations are and the perspective allowing you to better put together strings of actions. When you're in the flow of combat, it looks and feels great. However, Betrayal is also a platformer, and from here on out, we're going to talk about 2011. 2011 was a great year for gaming. It's the year that Skyrim came out, but it is also when we would see a huge rise in indie games flooding the console market. And there just wasn't a lot in the way of quality control. With that being the case, you tend to forget that the line between difficulty and frustrating gameplay was a blurry affair back then. I haven't wanted to bite my controller in half so much in my entire life. Now, the Freshbites remaster did make changes to the game to bring down the difficulty, but I think they missed some of the frustration points. I think chief front and center, the backflip high jump maneuver sits in the middle of this shit show. So I'm going to explain this to you with a little roleplay. Grab your controller, okay? Now imagine you're playing this game and you're going to dash right. And then while you're dashing, you're going to input left and jump. Okay, did you do it? So did you input right on the D-pad when you initiated the dash and then change from right to left and then press jump? Yep, that's what I thought. So, Betrayal expects you to let go of all directional buttons while initiating the dash, and then pressing the opposite directional input with the jump button. I have no idea why they made this so unintuitive for the average person, and it sucks, because reliably pulling off this move is essential for the platforming sections. Simply explaining this quirk will already make your experience so much better, but I wonder why they didn't bother changing this to be more natural when they remastered the game. What exacerbates this issue is that Rayne carries a little bit of momentum after you stop inputting a direction, and the platforming of this game demands precision. Like, I don't think you understand. I am trying to bounce on the back of mosquitoes over lava while dodging lasers. Mull over that one and figure out the odds of pulling that one off without calculus. Now, if it's saw blades, then it takes a chunk of your health and maybe you can recover, but if it's something like lava or a toxic pool, then forget about it, you're going back to the checkpoint. I will say that the checkpoints are mostly generous, and I think that's the efforts of the remaster, but some sections feel really bad trying to go through over and over, especially if it's a combat arena on each side of a platforming section in between checkpoints. Circling back to the combat, I've finished the game and I still have no idea how I'm supposed to deal with these electric frogs. I can't shoot them because they jump around using that bullshit blanket move from Street Fighter. It would be fine if it was just the frogs, but Betrayal sprinkles these into the tougher fights like Salt Bay in the closing chapters, making them both impossible to focus and also impossible to ignore at the same time. It could be a skill issue, but I found them to be a standout as an annoying enemy that I found unfun to encounter. Betrayal has some combat arenas that are completely silhouetted. These would be fine in low numbers, but once there are a lot of enemies on screen, it's just impossible to tell what's going on. Which is a pity because I actually love how these look. This would be badass in a movie, but I can't say that I had fun trying to figure out where Rayne was on the screen. Later in the game, you get a power to turn into a raven. This actually predates Flappy Bird, but it's Flappy Bird and you spam X to flap your wings. After getting this power, I was very grateful for the zones that didn't allow transformation. It's not that the bird zones are bad, it's just not what I signed up for. I think I speak for most people when I say I would have preferred controlling the Raven as a directional control and then have the difficulty placed elsewhere. Also, I wish I had more options to integrate the Raven into the combat loop, but let me know what you think in the comments on this one. I haven't really heard anyone that really relishes in the Raven sections, but who knows. The last boss's health bar covers your player character if you run to the right side of the screen, which was frustrating because the rocks fall from the top of the screen and you're expected to dodge them, but it's easy to lose Rayne's location underneath the health bar. If you play Betrayal on standard difficulty without prior knowledge, you're going to get bad ratings for just about every level, and there's little feedback on what you're doing wrong. Almost every level I played gave me an F rank, but looking at other reviews, it seems like this is the normal experience. Now, I'm no teacher, but my dad is, and C is the average, so the average player should get a C. And look, I'm not mad 'cause bad, I'm mad because it's bad to consistently give players the lowest possible rating on their first run through the game. I think they were hoping that this would be a motivator for people to replay the levels, but no, this does the opposite. I feel stupid even explaining this, but here we are. A gamer finishes 2 games. One game you got 2 achievements out of 50, the other you got 35. Which game do you think the average gamer will continue playing? That's right, the obvious choice. The one that made them feel like they made progress. The truth is that Betrayal expects you to know the level to even get the average rating. I've been talking about this for a while now, but I think I needed to point this out to really illustrate how close Betrayal comes to being good before tripping over its feet. It's not only frustrating to play, it's frustrating as I write this review because it's so easy to fix. There isn't anything wrong with the proposition of the gameplay or anything, it's literally just quality control. Here, I'll do it for you. Make the backflip input more lenient. Remove the momentum from the movement and allow the player to animation cancel when they dash. Increase visibility in the silhouette scenes and use them as cinematic moments rather than eyesight tests. Change the ranking curve so the average playthrough reflects the average score. Hide the boss health bar when it obstructs the player. Look at what I'm suggesting here. This isn't rocket science. One person on their team could do this in a week. Story? The only story you need to know is when you spawn at a blood fountain, Rayne drinks blood in a teacup like a refined and elegant lady. Outside of tea time though, she is pretty much just going to offer the stoic quip here and there. As the title suggests, there is a betrayal that happens in the story, but all of this is paper thin and not really the focus. When bad things happen, Rayne doesn't get sad, she just stabs things, and she wants to stab her dad. The music in Betrayal is incredible and is everything you could imagine from marrying the distinguished but ultimately tortured mind of a vampire with the speed and aggression of the blood-crazed beast they have become. You have these eternal piano runs mixed with double kick and metal guitars. This isn't the kind of carnal aggression you would see from Mick Gordon though. The intent is to convey melody, speed, and precision, and this soundtrack hits the mark. And yeah, something Symphony of the Night, but look, this is good. The credit song is also quite the treat, and also quite 2011. At first I thought I was listening to Evanescence, but no, this is not Amy Lee, but Jessie Seeley. Jessie really does deserve a mention here for her stirring performance. I'll leave a link in the description of the full song, as it's really worth a listen. So look, we now have to wrap this up, and it's getting a bit long in the tooth. What can I say other than Rayne Betrayal Freshbites betrayed itself by stepping on its own feet after all the hard work was put into the beautiful presentation, the great power fantasy, and the solid soundtrack. It's definitely not a bad game, but it's hard to imagine anyone walking away without some frustrations, and I think the entire ordeal makes it hard to recommend to anyone that isn't particularly invested in the vampire femme fatale aesthetic. This is a tough one for me because I really want the Rayne IP to be successful, but gun to my head, and it's a sunbeam, I give Rayne Betrayal Freshbites a 5 out of 10.